Welcome to the Masculine Revolution, hosted by Jeremy Brown and myself, Murphy G. This is episode number 38, titled Fellowship with Brad Moore. Appreciate you coming on this morning, Brad.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Brad is a member here at Foundation with me and Jeremy. He's also the owner of Moore's Hardwood Flooring here in Newnan, Georgia. And he hosts the men's Bible and breakfast at Redneck Gourmet. You've heard me talk about that. We meet about 7 a.m. on Fridays. It's a good fellowship.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he, I guess through talking with Jeremy and listening to the podcast, you felt led to get that started.
Yep.
And so it's been great. As somebody who attends it every week, it's
Yeah.
been great to be there. So I appreciate you doing that. Appreciate you coming on this morning, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Yeah. Jeremy, you kind of want to take us into the topic this morning?
Yeah, man. So as always, we ask, hey, what's a good topic? And Brad threw out fellowship, which is pretty awesome because it seems like there's conversations going on through a bunch of people in my life on that topic. So I'm excited to chat about it. But before we kind of dig into the walking through that topic together, give us some context, about who you are. Kind of a short history. You ain't got to go into too much detail, but a little bit.
Like Murphy said, I own Hardwood Flooring Company here in Newnan. I got one kid. He's 11. We've been attending Foundation for a little over a year now, and I'm 39 years old.
Okay, cool. So when I ask you, hey, pick a topic that you want to talk about, and you said fellowship, why was it something on your mind?
Like Murphy said, we've been doing the breakfast on Friday morning, and I've always been like a loner type person, sort of just stuck to myself, and realized that I need some people in my life. That's why I started attending Foundation, and just having that relationship with people has helped me out a lot, just to be able to pick up the phone call and call you, text you whenever I'm having troubles,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how would you define fellowship?
So I was thinking about it the other day, and group of people meet up to have something in common, right? Yeah. And the biblical fellowship comes in with just talking about Christ, doing some Bible study like we do at the Redneck Gourmet at 7 a.m. on Fridays.
Okay, so spending time with each other and also digging into the scripture and having conversations about it.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's an important thing to have a part of your life?
Like I said, I think it's just having people to count on, having people to pick up the phone and call. Like that's been very important in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. How has it affected you? Like, give us some examples.
Like the other week, I was having a little meltdown, and before I didn't really have anybody I could call and count on. But 2 weeks ago, I picked up the phone, and the first 5 people that popped in my mind, you two were part of that group, and just to have people praying for you and have people that have your back, that just means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think happens when you have that in your life? Do you feel as if you can stay focused more? You can feel comforted. You can feel encouraged.
All of the above.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a positive so that you can keep going, right? What do you think the largest impact in your life has been since you've kind of started experiencing that?
I would say the relationships. I mean, that's the biggest impact in my life, just the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Brotherhood,
Yeah. How has that pushed you closer to Jesus?
Accountability, like the Friday morning breakfast. If I know I'm going there on Friday mornings, I dig into the Bible a little more than I would if I wasn't going on Friday. So just accountability.
Okay. So helps create some habits.
Right.
Yeah. What about you, Murph? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, since going to that, We pass by people during Sundays, and everybody's got their schedules and stuff like that. And so when I go there on Fridays and I hear the guys that I see, that I pass by all the time, and then to hear everybody talk and open up, and then it's all like relative, you know what I mean? So sometimes we get in a space where we feel like what I'm going through is just me and just what I see, and then you get around a group of guys and you realize that like you're not alone, you know what I'm saying? And like everybody has the same kind of struggles. We're all fighting, the same kind of fight, and so it's just nice to feel like you're not alone. So you get there and you get charged up because you're like, all these guys that come, they're committed to each other, and just as like the group, you know what I mean, is like to open up and be vulnerable is really a commitment to the other person that you trust them, you know what I mean? And so when you have a group of guys that are around, that we all work in different kind of fields and stuff like that, but we're all dealing with the same thing. And so it's just nice to have that like unifying feeling of like, all right, I'm not alone in my struggles or like what I'm trying to get to, or
Yeah.
So
What kind of impact do you think fellowship has for the gospel? Spreading of the good news.
Yeah, I mean that is the proof in the pudding. I think anybody can talk and anybody can go evangelize, but then once there's a group of people actually living on mission for the same thing, that's a testament of what we talk about. So, you can tell people about it, and then there's living it out. And so I think through community, we're able to live that out, and actually be a part of what we're talking about,
Yeah.
And another thing is there's so many different people there. Like me, I'm sort of new in my faith, but then you have like Rich, who's been a pastor, and everybody has different perspectives also,
Yeah.
Hearing everybody's point of view is good to.
Yeah. How do you think that helps you as far as like, walking through your day, having the ability to share different perspectives with others?
I mean, I enjoy it, like listening to what Rich has to say and then listening to what Murphy has to say. Like I said, we're from different walks of life, and it's just nice to hear everybody's perspective.
Yeah. How does it affect you in a practical way? Like,
it's just because you're not alone, like, well, he's been through that, he's been through that. Like he said, like when we get there, we just open up and we talk about all kinds of stuff, kids, relationships, everyday life,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, something that's kind of, the secret sauce or the magic with fellowship is that, I think Jesus calls us into a relationship with him, right? And a relationship is two parties experiencing time with each other, building trust, building dependency, leaning on each other, all of the things that we've already mentioned. And so he wants us to also do that with others, which in essence grows, because when people are in fellowship and living life together in a positive way and in unison on living on mission, on purpose life, I think that is attractive to others that may not know Jesus when they're sitting there in a situation in life that's struggle or searching for understanding or trying to make life make sense. And then they see, this group of people living in a particular way that seems to be different than everything else around them. It strikes a curiosity chord, I think, in their minds, and without fellowship, I don't think that exists. I mean, if you're just, let's just use church, for example. If you're just coming in, attending a Sunday morning service, then leaving, and you don't have any relationships, you don't have any, you're saying good morning and you're smiling when you smile on your face. Oh, yeah, how's life? Doing great, all that, but there's nothing real going on with it. You know, well, what's going to spur you to grow? What's going to spur you to challenge yourself, to analyze how you're processing your everyday, and making an impact on others, without the fellowship piece, you know. And I think it's important when you read in the New Testament, you read, you know, these folks that were diving into this new way that Jesus taught. They were spending time with each other. They were praying with each other, and then they were also going out into the world and doing their everyday, you know, normal routines. But they were coming together and spending that time. And I think that, you know, the perspective piece is huge, because as an individual human, you know, I think we tend to, without outside perspectives, we tend to kind of look through life through a straw. And if you think about it, that's a narrow vision, right? And so when you involve others in your life and that fellowship and that spurring on one another takes place, it broadens your perspective and you realize that you're a part of something bigger than yourself. And when you start to live as a part of something bigger than yourself, then the impact is greater on others. And what's wild is that's done by just simply adjusting the perspective. But fellowship is a massive tool in that. I don't think it's the only tool, but I think it is a massive tool. How would y'all say you can develop your understanding of fellowship?
Develop an understanding of it?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
You know, let's say you don't have any experience with, you just decided, hey, I'm a new believer in Jesus. I'm going to dedicate my life to him. I'm going to get baptized and I'm going to start digging in and seeing what he's got for me.
Yeah.
What kind of path do you jump on to begin that development of what does it mean to actually walk with not only him, but others as well with him?
I think you just got to get involved. Like, just keep getting involved, keep jumping in. Like the Friday morning breakfast, or we're meeting here at 7:30 on Saturdays to do a little workout. Just keep digging in and keep getting involved. Because you can come to church every Sunday and then go home and never do anything. Because that's what I did for a while. And then I started digging in, coming to your small group. Just got to keep going.
Yeah.
Get involved.
So do you think that was easy? Was it hard? What for you?
It was hard at first because don't talk a lot, kind of shy at first. But once I got into your small group, got to know you guys, it got easier.
Yeah. So it took a step of stepping outside of your comfort zone first, and be a little bit of vulnerable before there was actually some comfort with it.
Yeah.
So doing something.
Yeah, I agree with that. You just got to do it, man. I mean, that's just, and you can attach to different things. It ain't always got to be a men's breakfast or whatever, but like, like Foundation's got plenty of teams and stuff, or like wherever you go to church or whatever, get plugged in, like you got to do something to get around other people. You know what I mean? I know for me, myself, like, I'm like you, man, I'm kind of a loner and I don't know why. Maybe it's just like past experiences or whatever. But my default is like, oh, them folks probably don't like me, and so it just puts me in the headspace of like, and I'm just being honest, like that's just where I don't feel like I'm owed for anybody to like me, and so when I think of it like that, and I'm just like, oh, I'll get in my head, and at the same time, I'm like, I'm cool by myself too.
Yeah.
So if they don't like me, that's fine. But that whole psych just puts me in a mind frame of kind of like standoffish a little bit, and I think for my mental health, as far as feeling fulfilled in my life, like God wants us to be in community, and so even if that is a part of my personality, I have to lean into something different to get a different result. And so if I am a loner, then that means I need to lean more into community because that's where that's what God calls us to do. Love God, love others. You can't love others if you ain't ever around them.
Yeah.
Can't love others if you don't have a relationship. So I completely understand that. And I'll say, just from going to the Bible and breakfast, like, that's been a huge, like, uplift for me, just to be a part of that, because, like I said, like, that's just my default thing. People probably just don't like me. And so when I go there and I'm like, all right, you know, I can relate to that guy, even though, you know, he's in corporate America, I'm blue collar or whatever. So it's like, even though we're in two different worlds, and like, I hear the worries on his heart and what he wants to strive for, then it's like, all right, well, maybe we got more in common than I thought, you know? And then I share a little bit and it's received. And so it's like, that's what I mean though, is like, you got to take the first step.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to put yourself out there. If you want different, you got to do something different. If you want the same, then do the same thing you always done. But change happens it's an action. You got to do something, you know, and that you just can't argue with that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think that fellowship is something that's typically elusive in our society or culture? Or do you think it's something that happens naturally?
I think fellowship happens naturally, but good fellowship doesn't happen naturally.
Yeah.
You can rally some people up to go drink a beer. You can rally people up to watch a football game. It's harder to rally people up to grow in the Bible and to grow in the Word.
Mm-hmm.
So fellowship happens for sure. And you can, you know, there's plenty of like friend groups and stuff like that that do everything but that. And so I think the reason why it's not, I think it's just because when you go to grow, you have to confront things about yourself. And so it's easier to stay right here. You know, my life's pretty good. I like this. I feel pretty good about what I do or whatever. But that's what I'm saying. If you get into biblical fellowship or fellowship where it's focused on God, then yeah, it's a little bit harder to do. I think a little bit more rare to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you think, Brad?
That's what I like about the breakfast, is because we do like the Bible app. So we don't like, it's something that you don't have to commit to every single Friday. Like, you just jump in when you can. And we just do a plan all week with the Bible app. And then we just come in on Fridays and talk about it. So it's just something different every week.
Mm-hmm.
It helps out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, when you hear every Friday morning, it's like that commitment. People are like, whoa, you know, I don't want to do that. But so we just got it set up where you can just jump in when you can and show up.
Yeah. Why do you think that is, as far as making a commitment is a hard thing to do?
I'm not sure. I mean, I do it too. Like, commit to something, then later on be like, oh, why'd I do that, you know? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think, Murph? What's the challenge with the crossing the bridge of commitment?
I mean, we kind of talked about this on the last one with consistency. I think it just doing the same thing over and over again. Some people, it's just extremely hard for them to do that, you know. And so when things seem routine or mundane or whatever, they look for something else to be exciting. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's also just our society, man. Everything's right now, you know. Hey, I mean, you can scroll on Instagram or TikTok forever, you know, never run out of information. It's short video after short video. And so we just live our lives that way, you know. I mean, I just think it's the pace of society right now.
Yeah. So what would you say, as far as, would you qualify that as healthy or unhealthy?
Scrolling? Definitely unhealthy.
Yeah. No, just like not being able to make a commitment to that fellowship side of things.
I mean, I think it's definitely unhealthy. You got to, like we said before, you got to get plugged in. You got to get involved and take that first step, and it just gets easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't know if healthy and unhealthy are maybe the right things, but it's definitely hard to do, man. But anything worth having is worth putting in the effort for.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it takes work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can agree with that for sure.
What do you think the largest challenge for y'all with consistent fellowship with others is?
Me personally,
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah.
I got 3 kids. I work. It's just the time, man.
Yep.
You know, it's hard. It's hard to make time for. I mean, you know, going to the breakfast is good and stuff because it's like it's early in the morning. Same with this podcast, we do it early in the morning, not to take away from other things. But yeah, I mean, time's the one thing you need for a relationship, and time's the one reason, probably the number one reason why it's so hard to build relationships.
Yep.
Yeah, time management.
Yeah, I would agree, man. I think that something that I've been really concentrating on for some years now in my own mind and my own thoughts is I think at the pace at which we live and our society almost demands it, you know, that time is something that we don't necessarily manage in a healthy way from a biblical perspective. We give it away too easily. And to be intentional with your time, I think you have to actually sit down, write some things down as far as your values, and then take your values. Let's just say your top 3 values that are most important to you in your life. You write them down, and then you look at your schedule, and then you sit there and say, all right, how does my time spent through my day, how do my values that I put high on my priority list on being important to me fit within that time frame? And I think that for most people, I think, haven't done that exercise. And so because the thought process hasn't taken place, there hasn't been an analysis of how the time is being spent. And so, but if you do that exercise, all of a sudden you see, well, dang, like there's an enormous amount of my time not contributing to my values. And I think that is a direct relation in your life to the frustration that you experience. When you're not in line, if your lifestyle is not in line with what you value, you're going to be frustrated. Even an undertone, like meaning like you might not even understand or even have the conscious thought of like putting those pieces together to understand like why I'm frustrated, but you just feel frustration, you know, or
overwhelmed.
Or overwhelmed.
Yeah, overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you're just like, you know, and every day you're just sitting there like, you know, man, I just wish things were different, you know. But if you do that little exercise and then you look at your time, the question is okay, what can I do that I have control over that can take my time and put it more directed to the values that I, you know, hold close to my heart, you know. And I think that's a massive important thing to do. And I don't think it's just like a one-time thing. It's not like you just like, okay, here's my values and here's where my time is. I think it should happen regularly for a source of accountability. And if you can do that with a group of people that you're participating in biblical fellowship with, like now we're talking, because now you got a bunch of people with that you're discussing it with that you can have a broader perspective on, and you hear their thoughts and how their time is spent, and it opens your mind to like, wow, okay. And then all of a sudden you get unity starts happening where people are reprioritizing their time to be in line with their values. You know, and I think that's what you see in Scripture. You know, the first church when it started exploding after Jesus ascended into heaven, I think, and he gave the Great Commission to the disciples, I think you start seeing this ripple effect of people coming together and saying, these are our values and this is what we believe. We are in agreement with what Jesus was teaching. How can we transform our lives to fit this mold more tight? You know, and it's not going to necessarily be a perfection thing like, oh, I'm going to crush it and be nothing but alignment. I don't know if that's a possible thing, as far as being human wise, because we're so easily distracted. But I think that it does get better over time, just like anything else, if you practice it,
Yeah.
But I think practicing it is something that has to take place regularly, just like anything. Like if you're in your profession, Brad, you're in flooring, right? And would you say that if you rewind time 5 years ago to today, would you say that you finish and install flooring better now or 5 years ago?
Definitely better now.
Yeah. And why?
Times change. You just evolve and do stuff differently.
Yeah, you learn.
Learn.
Yeah, you learn, and you learn mainly from failures, right? I mean, like, oh well, I did this wrong, or I did this project wrong, or I made a mistake here. Not necessarily that you got it wrong 100%, but like you did this little step out of sequence, and then you said, well, that didn't work. Let me do this step here instead of here, and all of a sudden the product's better. Right. So I think, that's the beautiful thing about the human experience is you can take anything, take any activity, and the more practice that you do of it and the more analyzation of the practice that you do of it, the better you get. Like you take all the football players in the U.S., and they start in your little peewee leagues and they go to the middle school, high school level. If they end up making it to the college, they're percentage-wise, they're incredible,
Right.
But then you go to the NFL, where these are professional players. It's like this minuscule percentage of people that are actually going to make it to that level. But why do those guys make it to the level? Obviously, there's gifts and talents involved, but it's also because they've been completely dedicated to it and given it everything they got. And it's not just, I'm going to go out here and work, just put the sweat in. Nah, it's, I'm going to analyze and I'm going to watch footage and I'm going to think through all these little steps and I'm going to tweak all these little things. And that's how they get to become excellent at what they're doing. And I think that, believers need to do that. And I think a lot of the times we don't. We're lazy with our belief and our convictions. We're not getting after it on a daily basis on a level of striving for excellence, which is what Jesus calls us to. He says, look, you're not going to hit perfection, but I want you to strive after perfection. And I think the fellowship is a part of that it brings so much value to that process because it broadens your perspective. It creates relationships that are seen from the outside looking in, that are functioning in a different way that isn't typically normal in the world setting. Like you said, Murph, fellowship is easy. You can go to a sports bar and watch a game, drink some beer with some guys, and have some relationships that are real. I'm not saying they aren't real.
Yeah.
They're real. But as far as striving and pushing each other to pursue after excellence, that's the secret sauce. That's the magic. When I look at the disciples and how Jesus interacted with them, it was nothing but that. He challenged the way that they thought and the way that they were raised and how they were taught when they were kids. He challenged the way they were thinking, but not through a method or I'm drawing a blank on the word I'm looking for, but just like not in a way of like condescending. It was like this encouraging process of, look, you were created for something bigger and to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And I want to open the door so that you can walk through it and experience what I've created you to experience. And then you see these men that, we're talking about them right now, and it's a couple thousand years later, right. And so it's a powerful tool to live life, in a different way. And my hope is that people hear this conversation and they say, well, I kind of want some of that. I want some of that in my life. But the thing is when you hear it, don't just go after it just because what you're going to get out of it, and what you're going to experience, because that is not what it's about. It's about transforming yourself to be more in line to what God created you to be. And when you get to experience just a little fraction of that, you don't want it to stop. Like you just do everything, that you can. Which kind of leads me into one of my last questions about, the fellowship side of it is, what can you intentionally do to develop that fellowship in your life?
I think just same thing, just to keep digging in, like just keep showing up and getting involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, being aware of things. Sometimes we just get swept by life, and get caught up in emotions. And I don't think it's necessarily like people aren't interested in fellowship or like don't want relationships. I think if everybody's honest, I think we desire a deep connection with other people. And so I just think that life gets hard sometimes and we get swept, and but it's important to lean into those things because that's how we were created. We're supposed to be in community with each other, and it does bring out the best version of you because that's like my whole thing is like you might say something that you think is true and you say it out loud and then other people are like they push back on it. Well, now that gives me something else to think about, is where if before I would just be leaning on my own understanding, you know what I'm saying? And so in order to be who God created me to be, you got to go through, renewing of the mind. You got to change the way that you do things, And so community is like being able to participate in that, with others, not just with you, but being able to help others too in the same way. And that way it's not like I'm slam dunking on you or, you know what I'm saying? It's like when it's a back and forth, then it don't have to be, like a condescending thing because there's context for the relationship. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I just it's so important because accountability, everything. All the tools you need to grow are found within the community. I think.
Yeah. I think that assessing your time before you even begin to start focusing on time spent with others, but analyzing what your day looks like typically, and each day's different, but where's your time being spent? You said earlier, Murph, Jesus said, hey, you can boil all the 10 commandments down to love God, love others, right? So how much are you loving others? Where does that fit? How does that fit in your everyday? And I think it's important to recognize that at the end of the day, we got a pretty finite time here being alive on earth. But we will live in eternity with Jesus or not with him, and that's forever, which is really difficult for our minds to grasp because we're created beings and everything in our world has a beginning and an end. So to grasp eternities, at least for me, it's like, man, how do you even understand that, But regardless if I understand it, I still trust that there is that. And that's where I've come to, as far as trying to explain it, I really can't explain it, But that's okay. There's things beyond my understanding, and I accept it. And I trust that Jesus does know what he's talking about, and he's saying, look, you gotta play the long game because this little time that we have here on earth is just a tiny little fraction in the big scheme of things. And so if that's true, how can I orchestrate my life to point in the direction of living an on purpose, on mission life that would be viewed as excellence, not in anybody else's opinion, but Jesus's. And the only thing that I can do, and the only way I can begin to start that process is take a look at his teachings, right? Think about the principles that he's laying out there in the Gospels. And then you can continue reading on in the remainder of the New Testament of examples of people executing those principles in a positive way and a negative way, so you can learn. And then live it out in the best way that I can, and that involves a relationship with him and a relationship with others. And so in my eyes, that should be a high priority on your priority list, is seeking after him and seeking after a relationship with others, seeing that he boiled all the 10 commandments down to 2 things: love God, love others. And he said, you do those 2 things, you do pretty good on keeping the commandments, right? And so it's powerful. It's powerful. And I don't want to miss it. And I don't want others to miss it. But we can't be influenced by what the world will tell us how to spend our time. Because if we do that, our time is gone. And we look at it and we're like, well, what is my time? What's been accomplished? And most of the time, it's nothing, Maybe some, little bit of here and there. But for the most part, if you go with the way culture and society is going, then, it ain't going to be long game. It's going to be short-term gratification, and that's it, which, what can you build on that? That will actually last. I haven't seen anything, So yeah, I think it's an important thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's in today's time too, with just like, the dollar not being worth much, and you just got to work and work and work and work. I would just encourage people to, try to find a way to not have to be like that. Whether it be, trying to get out of debt or whatever. But like I know for myself, I just said I got kids and then I work. So it's like, I got to figure out ways to where I can be financially free, so I don't feel like I got to go out there. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of us live in financial debt, and so we can't miss a day. You know what I mean? It's like, I have to pay that mortgage. I got to pay the credit card bill. I got to pay this or whatever. And so to me, a lot of times, those things where you can be like, well, I'm taking care of my family. And it's like, yeah, you are, but, could you be better at that? These are all questions that go in together to me, because, it's like, are you trusting God with your finances? That was something I had to face was, all right, I'm working. But what is the result of that? Even with, relationships, like, how much time am I actually spending with my kids? So then it's like, I can sit here and justify that I'm working all these hours and I'm taking on all this stuff for them. But if I ain't ever spending that time with them, am I really doing it for them? And so these are questions I had to ask myself in order to, and I had a conversation with Jeremy about, hey, I'm working like this, and it's like, I had to put faith in, I just had to make a decision that I was going to do it. That's just really what it came down to. Hey, I know I feel a conviction that my time is always spent working or on other things that I feel like I have to do. And I had to take a readjustment to say, all right, like, guys, you know what I'm up against. I want to do these things, And the funny part is I took the first step, and it's like, God has provided every time. You know what I'm saying? And then I start to realize, like, oh, like, really the working all the time ain't really what's good, because I'm going to be worn out. And then when I'm worn out like that, my mental spot is in a weird space. So it's just like, it all encompasses together, and, it all spider webs out when you start looking at it. But I just know for myself, just like, focusing on like, on just really giving everything to God, but like, your budget and all that, because I know that people work a lot. And so it's not like everybody's just got, loads of free time that they're just deciding to, oh, I'm not going to do this. But I think people work a lot and are trying to create, and so I would just say, take a readjustment of that, or assessment of that and see where you can fit it in baby steps, you know what I'm saying? Because I had to do the same thing. I had to realize that, like, hey, I can work 7 days a week, but that serves nobody. And so then I had to, you got to make some adjustments and set some goals for what you're trying to accomplish, and that was just on my mind right there about, I know that debt's kind of like a normal thing for our society, and it's, you almost can't get around it at times, but you definitely can. But it just seems like that because everything's so instant. So, but just as an encouragement, like, hey, if that's your reason, then like take an assessment, see what you can live without, see what you can sacrifice, because that's what it's going to take. But the reward is there, man, because I'm telling you, like, being a part of that group that y'all started, man, just has really uplifted my spirits, you know what I'm saying? Because even though I see these guys when we're at church, just like, I've never really had a conversation with any of them until we sat down. I mean, even with you, I have with Rich, but the rest of the guys there, like, I really haven't had much conversation with. So being able to get to know them is just, it's a value to my life right there.
Right.
And so, it's worth it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, Brad?
No.
Murph?
Yeah. I think I just said it, man. Really, I think it's worth it. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take some uncomfortability, but it's worth it, man. Just like, getting in charge of your health or anything like that. Like, it's hard to start, and it's even harder to keep going, but it's worth it, man. And I feel like that's what God's called us to do. So,
yep. Yeah, I would say, action step. Put some pen to paper, write your values down, and then assess your time and see how loving God and loving others fits into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you coming on this morning, Brad.
Yes, sir.
Really enjoyed talking with you. As always, y'all can reach out to us at Masculine Revolution Podcast on Facebook or masculinerevolution@gmail.com. Until next time.
Join the family.